There's a reason we love stories so much. It's that no two stories are exactly the same, because no two people are exactly the same. We see this world through over 7 billion different sets of eyes. But when someone shares their story with us, we're able to see it through theirs. It's in these moments that we're able to see that we're all bound by a common hope. We all want to build a better future for our communities, even if we have different ideas about how to get there. That's why we're inviting change makers from around the world to share their stories, so you can see the world the way they see it, and together help change it for the better. We're bringing them here because this is where our story began. This is where we learned that ordinary people working together can change history, and that everyone you meet has a unique story to tell, if you're just willing to listen.
Please welcome your host, Chicago Community Leadership Corps member, Janelle Bell.
Good afternoon. Hello to the thousands of people joining us from all around the world on our live stream. That's enough to get a girl a little nervous, but I'm gonna do all right, right? Okay. My name is Janelle Bell, and I'm a community organizer on the south side of Chicago. I am thrilled to be here kicking off an incredible event, the second ever Obama Foundation Summit right here in Chicago. I moved to this beautiful city in 2014 to begin a 2-year stint as a preschool teacher on the south side of Chicago through Teach for America. It was during those 2 years that I saw the best of those communities. Kids full of promise, dedicated parents, and teachers who give so much of themselves so that their students can reach their full potential. But I also saw some struggles too. The difficulty to secure the resources they deserved, and the lack of the guidance from Black youth of all ages to navigate their full potential. The lack of recognition of Black excellence that could help inspire and empower a new generation of young men and women of color. So when I was selected to be a part of the Obama Foundation's Community Leadership Corps, a program that seeks to empower and train young leaders to create the world that they want to see, I knew I wanted to use that opportunity to attack some of the challenges I had experienced on the South Side. Together with 2 incredible teammates, Derek Butler and Michelle Rashad, we founded Positively Melanin, a group that highlights Black excellence across industries to inspire Black youth. Our Black youth are faced with so many negative stereotypes about who they are. On film, on TV, in the news, we are constantly shown narratives that insult our culture, our city, and the way we see ourselves. So Positively Melanin holds workshops to equip our youth with the guidance they need to achieve their capacity for greatness. For the past 2 days, 300 of my incredible Community Leadership Corps friends from Chicago, Phoenix, and Columbia, South Carolina have been meeting here on site. And though we come from different cities with different upbringings, though we have different passions and hold different beliefs, though we all have different stories that brought us here to Chicago today, all of us share one common hope. We all want to build a better future for our communities, even if we don't agree about how we get there. Tonight and tomorrow, you're going to hear from inspiring people from all across the world, from athletes to advocates, from presidents and inspiring leaders, about how we can put our communities at the heart of the change that we want to see. just like a young community organizer on the south side of Chicago 30 years ago. So let's kick this off. This morning, the Community Leadership Corps got to have an incredible conversation with the acclaimed actress, singer, songwriter, and advocate, Janelle Monae, who shared some of her own thoughts and challenges and triumphs. Well, now, she's turning the table on us. She's going to interview two of our young leaders, Danny Flores, a queer artist originally from Mexico, now living in South Carolina, and Anna Dong, who is doing community work in Phoenix. Come on up.
Hello. I said hello. How are you guys doing this evening? Are you excited to be here? Because I am so excited to be here. I remember when this foundation was being put together, and to see the faces of the people that Barack and Michelle and everyone a part of making this a reality thought about, to see it come into fruition is really inspiring. So thank you guys for being here, and thank you for having me. I'm so honored to get to talk to you two again. We spoke earlier this morning, and you were just such a great morning cup of coffee. Like, you gave me the energy. I learned so many new things. I felt, like I wasn't alone in trying to help communities. I've been doing it in acting and in music. I've been trying to, at least, but to know that you guys are on the ground as well and you're passionate about the things that you're doing is so inspiring. And I don't like talking about myself all the time anyway. So I want to turn the tables, and I want people to get to know you. I'm here for you, all right? So I have a couple questions. Or do you guys want to ask me anything before I continue on?
Yeah, actually, Janelle, it was really amazing getting to talk to you this morning, but I know that not everybody here got the opportunity to listen in on that conversation. So you talked a lot about how you're growing up, your experiences growing up helped develop I'm sorry, let me get the question. Experiences growing up help develop greater empathy with others. So could you talk to us a little bit more about the importance of empathy and community leadership?
Absolutely. Well, I think what you're referring to is me talking about how my grandmother, who grew up in Aberdeen, Mississippi, and she moved to Kansas City, Kansas, she had 12 children, and I have over 50 first cousins. Mm-hmm. I have a huge tribe of family, and it's hell trying to get them into a concert. Everybody wants free tickets. Everybody wants to get backstage. Everybody got a friend. I'm just like, But I love my family. And one of the things, that happens when you come from a family like that is you learn community early on. Like, we were our own tribe, and everybody had to pitch in. I was washing dishes sometimes. Sometimes I was babysitting my little cousins for my aunt. Sometimes we were all under one roof, my aunts and my uncles and my grandmother. And it just taught me responsibility, and it taught me to protect the people that I love and I care about. And so what that has done is it has motivated me to do that in all things that I do. Whenever I take on a project in music or in film, I'm thinking about my community. How can I make them proud? How can I uplift them? How can I represent? Representation is so important. How can I continue on my duties as a human being? And I think it just boils down to this one question that I ask myself every time I'm going to go and do something. Do I feel a responsibility to take care of those who may not be as privileged as me? Do I feel that responsibility as humanity? Because we are a civilization that literally depends on protecting each other. Like, we have to survive. And in order to survive, we need each other. So I just ask myself those questions. And, my family, has also helped me to empathize with people in the real world. Because when I meet somebody, and maybe we might not hit it off when we first meet, but I'm always like, you know what? You remind me of one of my cousins. You remind me of my crazy auntie. Let me just, let me be more patient. Let me be more kind. And that has helped me to try my hardest to lead with love in all that I say and all that I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so once again, my name is Anna, and I am originally from the Phoenix cohort of the CLC program. Yeah, go Phoenix. And to tell you a little bit more, to remind you about my project, it's called Generation Creative. And it's a digital storytelling campaign that's all about inspiring young adults and having them feel empowered and inspired to pursue any career that they want in the creative fields, and not to feel overwhelmed by negative stigmas or to feel pressure from their family to go down a particular path. Like, as a first-generation student, I did have some pressures with my mom and dad and finding a path that was deemed successful, right? But I'm so glad that I went down the creative field, because that's truly what I was passionate about and what I genuinely wanted to do as myself. And when I was younger, I didn't have that resource. I didn't have people to look up to in Arizona to see the creatives. The amount of creative people that we have in Arizona is incredible. And what Generation Creative is trying to do with that is to highlight them and to show young adults that they can be proud to be a part of the Arizona community, and to say that, yes, I'm from Arizona, and as a creative, I am so proud to be from Arizona.
That's fantastic. Now you see why it was so inspiring to talk to them earlier, and I'm happy I get the opportunity to speak to you guys again. And so I have a few questions for you, Anna and Danny. Thinking about when you started these projects, these amazing projects, up until right now, today, how has your understanding of yourself as a leader in your community changed?
Well, actually, just so people get to hear a little bit about my project, I created the first Queer Latinx float at SC Pride. And that project was very, very personal to me, because being a trans Latinx man in South Carolina, I've always kind of felt like I wasn't a part of a community. So through that project, I was actually able to find a community, not only for me, but for other queer Latinx folks in South Carolina. So that was such an accomplishment, and being able to represent that community finally. So back to your question, at the very beginning, I was really doubting myself as a leader and my abilities as a leader. I was scared that I wasn't going to be able to unite the community, and that I wasn't going to be able to get the support. Once we started going through the project and I was getting all of the support from the community, I really started feeling more confident in myself as a leader, and I was feeling like I had more faith, not only in me, but in my community.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's huge. I mean, I grew up in a small town, and I have family where you're from. So, it's difficult to stand out sometimes in those communities and when you don't feel supported.
Yeah.
But to see it all coming together for you, I know you're making them proud. I just want to personally say thank you. Like, seriously, it's huge.
Thank you.
For me, when I was in college, it was very easy to identify myself as a student leader, because I can be a part of the art school and I can do leadership positions in the art school, and to surround myself in this little bubble of arts and design. But when you graduate, that's kind of when I figured out what I was truly passionate about. Getting out there and kind of like honing in on what I cared about. So caring about my community, caring about arts and design, and caring about helping young adults. And then throughout this process, this whole project, the CLC project, has allowed me to channel those passions that I finally figured out for myself into a project where I can make a difference in someone's life. And I've grown immensely as a leader throughout these past 6 months, and seeing where I was as a student leader, now I can be a creative leader in my community that can empower other people, and not just people on campus in my dorm. It's much more than that now. So it's been awesome.
That's incredible. I'd like to follow up by asking, obviously, or by stating, obviously, it is hard work to do what you do. It doesn't come easy. You have to fight for it. And none of us, has to do it alone. What communities do you feel you belong to, and how do your communities support you in the process of getting your projects off the ground? Who's been there for you?
Yeah, I definitely feel super connected to the arts and design community in Arizona, as well as the Asian American community. And specifically, really what has impacted this project is being part of the local community. And what I mean by that is I work for a nonprofit in Arizona called Local First Arizona. And they're all about strengthening the Arizona economy through supporting local businesses, through supporting local farmers and local artists. And what that has really taught me, and what I applied from that, is that we should be proud of what we have in Arizona, and that we should use that as our asset to strengthen our own culture and the pride that we have for Arizona. So I really wanted to highlight the local artists, the local creatives, the local Taekwondo martial artists in our communities, and show young adults that they can be proud of where they come from, and to not notoriously graduate and then find a job in California or find a job in New York. Stay in Arizona and keep that pride that you have and where you went to school. Keep that local and keep that at home. So that has been awesome.
I know they're proud. I know they are. How about you?
Well, for me, like I mentioned earlier, at first I didn't really feel like I belonged in a community. In South Carolina, the Latinx community, in my experience, has been very homophobic and transphobic. That's partially due to our culture. The LGBT community tends to be very white. We don't get a lot of representation for people of color. So I was really worried that I wasn't going to get support from any of these communities. So I was really surprised when I realized that these communities started coexisting, and then all of a sudden it felt like a family. And I realized that it was a family when we finished our festival, when we finished the float at the festival. At the end of the parade, this guy came up to me and he said, "I've never felt like I've been a part of a family before like this." And that made me feel like we really did it.
Beautiful. In addition, Danny, you said that you wanted your CLC project to bring queer, can I pronounce it Latinx or Latinx? Mm-hmm. Either way?
Yeah.
Tomato, tomato? Okay. Okay, you said that you wanted your CLC project to bring queer Latinx people in Colombia together to feel united, to feel empowered, and to overcome the homophobia that many of us grew up around. What's one moment where you were working with your community and you realized you really felt like you did this? Or maybe that you had a little bit more work to do?
Honestly, I feel like there were so many moments where I felt like, man, we really did this. I think we started off when we started our fundraiser. We got a lot of support from the community. And at that point, I was like, man, like, we really did this. Then the Pride, like SC Pride, shared our fundraiser and said, please support this Latinx community. Like, they need representation. And I was like, wow, it can't get better than this. And then the next week, the president of Pride, like the Pride Festival, sends me a message on Facebook. So formal, by the way. But he sends me a message on Facebook, and he says, "We want you to be the Grand Marshal at Pride. And we want your float to lead the festival."
Can you tell everyone who hasn't been to a Pride event what a Grand Marshal is?
The Grand Marshal is the person who basically leads the parade. So not only was I leading the parade, but our float was leading the parade. And so at that point, I realized, like, we really did this. Like now it really can't get better. Like, we really represented the community now.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Anna, can you tell us more about growing up in Arizona? I've been there to tour a couple times. but I always, I'm in and out. So I would like to know, and I'm sure those who are watching and in here would like to know more about Arizona, and how did your experience inspire you to work with your community to demonstrate what leadership can look like in Phoenix?
Of course. So I'm actually, like I mentioned before, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And there's a huge, yeah, go Steelers, right? There's a whole community out there. Pennsylvania is super established. So they have, the communities are very established. The people know each other. There's already a culture there. And Arizona, in comparison, is only 100 years old. The state itself is only 100 years old and founded in 1912. And with that, it's we are still trying to build that culture. We don't have that established culture yet. And at times that can be a downfall, but then it also can be a benefit too. We have the opportunity to create what we want the state to look like. We, as young people and as young adults, we have the opportunity to make a change. And when I was younger in high school, I had no one to look up to in my community. I had no one to turn to. And with this campaign that we have, telling the stories of local creatives, I want to inspire young kids to look at that graphic designer and say, I can be that. I can aspire to be someone, and I can see someone in my community and possibly reach out to them and intern with them, or just see the work and the local work that they do and how that impacts their community and creates that culture and creates more of an established community and brings everyone together through that art and just showing what we have to offer.
I see so much. So much in you that I still feel like you are ready to just unleash. And I love that fire in your eyes.
I just wanted to say that it's been such an honor getting to talk to you once again. Unfortunately, I'm getting the signal that we need to start wrapping up.
Never enough time.
Yeah.
When you're speaking great things. Well, I just want to thank you, both Danny and Anna, for allowing me to be inspired just outside of my world, but to come into your worlds, and to be motivated. I think it starts with our communities. Our communities will shape the world and shape the future. And, I just want to leave with saying, and I said this earlier, that it won't be easy. What works for me may not work for you. There's this voice that will steer your inner compass that only you have. I can't have that voice for you. You can't have that voice for me. Stay in tune with it. There's also going to be moments where you want to give up, where you feel like you've made mistakes, where you've made errors, where you feel like, I'm very embarrassed. I'm not being a great leader. Be patient with yourselves. Forgive yourselves. We will all do that, but when your intentions and your heart is in the right space, there's no wrong way to go. God bless you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Janelle.
Please give it up for Janelle, Anna, and Danny. Anna and Danny. That was so inspiring. And now it's going to be on my resume that I opened up for Janelle Monae. Our next speaker just embarked on a significant journey from the country of Colombia to Columbia University. As an Obama Foundation scholar, she is building on a remarkable career spent organizing with indigenous communities. Please welcome Ana Maria Gonzalez Ferraro.
Thank you very much. I'm glad they said that you could make mistakes because this is my first public speaking in English and I'm terrified, but I'll be fine. ¿Quién eres tú para venir a decirme a mí qué tengo que hacer en tu tierra? Who are you to tell me how to live in my own land? I sat in horror as a community leader, yelled at an attorney in a billion-dollar company that was leading an informative meeting for a project that would begin very soon in that place. I'll explain. The second country in biodiversity globally, Colombia is also the first Latin American country in genetic diversity, with over 100 languages spoken by 74 distinct ethnic groups. Because of their dispersion, these peoples are all over the vast geographies of my country. They are also extremely vulnerable to poverty, conflict, expulsion, and acculturation. That is why the Colombian Constitution gives special protection to them since 1991. Only since 1991. That's quite late. Their critical issue is definitely land property. You know, state bureaucracies rely on papers, and they don't have those papers to prove that they own the land. So their possibility to development is hindered forever. Other interests, like those represented by the attorney, challenge their fragile ownership, especially when the land is rich with gold, fossil fuels, water, biodiversity. That's why I was sitting in that meeting, because my team has been working with that community, trying to help them understand their standing in that complex negotiation and build a 10-year action plan to defend their land and inclusive development rights. Yet I was very uncomfortable by the dynamics of the meeting, and it dawned on me. This man was so right. They have been on that land for over 300 years. Who were those people that suddenly came to inform them? They weren't even asking them. Could it happen a different way? Could these action plans be an instrument for inclusion? Sometimes we tend to forget that enslaved Black communities reached America over 500 years ago. Those who fled slavery are actually living in places where very far away, in rural, unexplored areas with no quality water, health, or communication. Yet, they flourish. What does that tell you about their prenatal care or their traditional botanical medicine? Zenu indigenous communities have been around since 2000 before Christ. They used to have absolute control over flood and drought, with a system of channels that has now been lost due to lack of maintenance from the Colombian state. Why are their ideas and technologies not valuable? With all these questions in mind, since 2014, my organization, FEM Colombia, developed an approach for effective inclusion with 3 guiding principles that I'm here to share with you tonight. First principle: bring forward our skills as part of the skill set and not as the skill set. Sometimes we make the mistake of introducing ourselves as saviors or heroes, not as just simple human beings with a call to contribute, which is what we are, right? I have a great example of this principle. This is a slum in Cartagena. One of the indigenous families we serve lived here. By sitting with him and his family to establish the common skill set, this is Mauricio, who developed a whole new design. Self-built by the family, so other families could copy the design. Some innovations like the elevated floor to prevent flooding or the mezzanine to improve ventilation. Mauricio himself learned new skills like the use of caña flecha and the installation of this beautiful material for the walls. Better than bamboo, light, perfect for hot weather, beautiful. This is the result. The second guiding principle: learn how to ask. Encourage different styles of learning and understanding. Become a translator. There's an example for this one too. 2 years ago, a couple of Danish girls offered their help as interns in their master's in participatory design, yet they spoke no Spanish. But when they arrived, we noticed that their quiet, industrious manner fit very well with a similarly quiet, industrious manner of indigenous women. Work began, and very quickly, their relationship was wonderful. It wasn't based on oral communication. It was based on making things together. They developed a project named Nina and co-created beautiful objects that they are now selling online. Empathy, friendship, and respect for each other's talents were key to making this a life-changing experience for everyone that was involved. This leads me to the third and last guiding principle. Make sure that everyone that should, has, a place at your table. This is the hardest. Find out who is missing and make it comfortable for them to participate. Many times, just asking, like what that attorney at the beginning of my story was doing, is simply not enough. Real leadership requires much more than that. Applying this principle sometimes gets really, really hard. It takes a lot of courage and patience to promote these values because inclusion is such an affront to status quo. This is Maria Elena, our attorney. Her patience is paramount to getting things done. During these years, we have learned that giving the mic to the older woman instead of the male leaders not only gives the right message, it creates a very needed new norm. It models our common hope for the future. Convergence is certainly not about who comes to solve more problems for others. It is rather an approach on how to be with others, essentially to understand the others as equals and our differences as privileges that we were never entitled to. Thus, my call to action is very simple. The next time you sit anywhere, look around. Make sure you are the person who invites whoever is missing. That is how we build power together.
I want you to know you matter. There's nothing, not a single thing that's more important to the future of America than whether or not young people all across this country can achieve their dreams.
We are the ones to inspire our generation, to rise up, take action and stand for the idea of opportunity for everyone, not just for the sake of young men like me, but for the sake of America's future.
We're the ones to not give excuses, to not wait for permission to challenge biases. We just do.
If they won't put our faces in their boardrooms, we won't put our faces in their stores.
To make sure America lives up to its grand ideals for our children and our neighbors' children. Because our futures are all tied together. I am my brother's keeper.
We are the ones.
I am my brother's keeper.
I am my brother's keeper.
my brother's keeper.
I am my brother's keeper.
And I want you to be too.
What's up, Chicago? What's up, Obama family? It is so exciting to be here and to see all of these incredible change makers and leaders from all over the world. My name is Michael Smith. I'm executive director of the My Brother's Keeper Alliance at the Obama Foundation. And I am excited. Thank you. That's so kind of you. And I'm excited to have a conversation today and invite you into conversation with some youth and community leaders from the great cities of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Chicago, Illinois. And these young people and slightly older people are bringing the words My Brother's Keeper to life in their community. So please join me in welcoming from the Native American Community Academy, Quincy Walker. From Chicago's own Becoming a Man program, Jose Guzman. Also from the great city of Albuquerque, the Director of Community Engagement for the city of Albuquerque, Frank Mirabal. And last but not least, the National Director of Becoming a Man, AJ Watson. So we're going to have a little conversation here today about the work of My Brother's Keeper, but I thought I'd spend just 1 minute telling you a little bit about what is this My Brother's Keeper. So a little bit more than 5 years ago, in July of 2013, President Obama surprised the briefing room in the White House press briefing room. And it was after the horrific killing of Trayvon Martin and the even more surprising verdict in that case. And President Obama went in front of the microphones and tried to explain to the nation the angst and the anger that families were feeling, the fear that boys and young men of color themselves were feeling. And he said a couple things during that surprise press briefing. He said, 30 years ago, Trayvon could have been me. He said, Trayvon could have been my son. And he says, there's got to be more that we can do to make sure young men of color in this country know that their country cares about them, and more importantly than that, is willing to invest in them. Fast forward. Fast forward 6 months later, in the East Room of the White House, surrounded by young men of color from all over the country, the president launched the My Brother's Keeper initiative to address the persistent opportunity gaps that boys and young men of color face and to make sure all young people can achieve their dreams. And he directed the federal government to get behind it and to do something about it. And now, the work of My Brother's Keeper lives as the My Brother's Keeper Alliance and the Obama Foundation. And we are working to build safe and supportive communities where young men of color know that they are cared for and know that there are clear pathways for them to achieve their dreams. And so today, with my incredible colleagues here, we're going to tell you what we're up to, how we're working to accelerate impact in targeted communities, how we're working to make sure we're strengthening the network of change makers like yourselves who are getting behind this incredible work, and how we're making sure that we're mobilizing citizens and resources to get behind this work that matters. So we are going to have a conversation, and I want to jump right in by talking with Frank. And Frank has had the distinct honor, normally when a new mayor comes in, he says bye to most of the staff. But Frank was doing something incredible. He was there when My Brother's Keeper launched in Albuquerque, when they took the President's Challenge back in 2014. New mayor came in and said, Frank, you're doing incredible work. So Frank, why don't you tell us a little bit about what was the accepting of the challenge in Albuquerque, what is the work, and then how is it continuing with NACA?
Sure, so when we first started off, that we get a new mayor, and I walk into my office, the first thing I'm thinking is like, man, I better pack my stuff up because I'm out. But fortunately, I was able to stay on board. When Mayor Barry accepted this challenge back in 2014, he couldn't stop talking about, hey, I was at the White House and I was just one row back from Magic Johnson. So that was like the big takeaway on the front end. And me being the big basketball geek that I am was like, Magic Johnson. But anyways, in terms of a little context first. So Albuquerque, New Mexico, are many of you familiar with our city? Yeah, it's a beautiful city. So we're about 1 million people in our metropolitan area. We are a minority-majority city, and we are a minority-majority state. So if young men of color get left behind, then our city does not thrive. So it's incredibly important that we do this work. So when we accepted the challenge back in 2014, we had a big youth summit. And when at that youth summit, young people gave us a clear mandate. They're like, we need help finding jobs. So the first thing that we did was like, we got to figure out what the barriers are to entry for them in finding jobs. So one of the things that we did was we partnered with an organization to do some skill-based hiring, because we know one of the barriers are many young men of color don't have the degree or have either associates, bachelor's, master's degree, but they have skills and they have assets, and how do we build on that? So we put over 300 young men of color to work. We've had some really tough conversations around school discipline and doing restorative justice work in schools. We've had some really difficult conversations with our police force and bringing young men of color with the police to have a dialogue in terms of like, how do we start to break down barriers so we feel safe in our communities? So now we're at a really interesting point in our development. So we're about 4 years in. And so now we are partnering with the Native American Community Academy to take this work to another level. And the reason that I think it's so critical that we're working with NACA and NACA Inspired Schools Network is they are getting us back to our core. And when you think about the work that we're doing in Albuquerque, New Mexico, there's been a historical loss of language, historical loss of culture. So they help us with reach in our community, with community engagement, but also get us back to our core and who we are as a people.
Thanks so much, Frank. I forgot to mention, so just this week, we announced about 20 organizations and communities across the country that My Brother's Keeper Alliance and the Obama Foundation is going to be investing in, providing them with the tools and the resources they need to take this work to the next level. And one of those cities is Albuquerque, and one of those organizations is Native American Community Academy. And one of the people that we wanted to bring here was one of the fine young men that works with that organization, Quincy. And so, Quincy, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey, how you ended up at NACA, and how NACA is helping you achieve all of your dreams.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, hi, my name is Quincy Walker, come from Little Pueblo in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Yeah, really excited to be here. I joined NACA in 8th grade. I'm a junior now. It's flown by very fast. But what NACA has done for me is unremarkable and unspeakable, because before I came, I was a troublemaker, you know what I mean? I was living in the hood. I was over there trying to be a naughty kid. But NACA has really just flipped my whole experience around, because now NACA has taught me half my culture. They taught me my language. They taught me my roots.
You got to know where you're coming from. That's right.
NACA has really like flipped my whole mindset about everything, because now I'm a youth partner, I'm a youth community leader, and now with MBK Foundation helping us, now we can help more young men of color just like me, help inspire more brothers, more sisters, more relatives just like me.
Yeah.
And one of the things that NACA really likes to do is focus on identity. And we focus on identity because we teach 5 different native languages. We teach Lakota, Keres, Tiwa, my language. That's my language. And we also speak Navajo. We also speak Zuni. Like, those are the tribes that almost surround all of us. And we have more representations of different tribes, close to 200. That's a lot. And so what NACA would like to do for young men of color is to focus on their well-being. So your social emotional wellness, because NACA likes to focus on the wellness field, intellectual, social emotional, community, and relationship. And so when we get to that, we get to one individual, your mind, heart, body, and surroundings. And once we can get to that, then we can like focus. What can you focus on your mind? What can you change about your mind? What can you change about your thinking? What can you change about your community? And one of the things I like to say when you change about your community is really like, who are you and what can you do as a person to help your people?
That's right. Thank you so much, Quincy. I am so excited to get to know you better. You have so much wisdom to share with us. And, you know, we have all of our 10 impact communities that are here with us, and every one of them has a young person. So we keep youth at the center of everything that we do. I next want to go over to the National Director of Becoming a Man at Youth Guidance here in Chicago. We've had a chance to, AJ, what's up?
Chicago, right?
Chicago. You know, we've had a chance to get to know each other. BAM was actually one of the inspirations for My Brother's Keeper. President Obama, I think, visited for the first time in 2012. Tell us a little bit about what is Becoming a Man and how you're taking this work to the next level with My Brother's Keeper.
Yeah, no, this is a little surreal. This is like one of those full circle moments from when the president came and sat in the BAM circle, and now the Alliance has got the grants out here. We've really, I think, just received the grant here for Chicago, and now we're ready to really take the mantle right of My Brother's Keeper and Boys and Men of Color and really lead the work here in Chicago. So Becoming a Man, it's really simple, right? It's a blend of counseling and mentoring and what we call the secret sauce of rites of passage. We get our adult men who work full-time in the schools with our young men, and they take them on this journey, right, that I think every young person is trying to figure out is, what does it mean to become a man? What does it mean to make progress through adolescence into adulthood? And man, it is just having this tremendous impact. We've been able to grow the program from President Obama sat in. The program has grown from serving 500 youth to serving over 7,000 youth here in Chicago, also now in Boston, Massachusetts. And
you said now in Boston, Massachusetts.
I did. Yeah, a little Boston, Massachusetts as well. But ultimately, it's just giving our young men a safe space in the school with an adult who has been trained, who is skilled, who is really prepared to help them wrestle with questions that we may never have asked or answered before. And when we do that, when we do it really well, it translates to our young men. They are doing less of what we don't want and more of what we do. We're seeing improvements in behavior, right, in attendance, in grades. We're seeing young men graduating at almost 20%, right, higher rates of young men not in the program. And we're seeing a reduction in violent crime arrests and arrests by a half, and violent crime and arrests by a third.
Wow.
It's just tremendous.
Wow. So Just a quick follow-up question, AJ. One of the things when President Obama talks about My Brother's Keeper, he often talks about this idea that we've got to invest in what works. We've got to have these real courageous conversations in our communities that sometimes good is not good enough. And just because you're doing it with all your heart and soul, you got to know what you're doing. You've got to have a theory of change, a path forward, and you've got to measure it to make sure you're on track. So AJ, if you could just give us a 30-second of how BAM and youth guidance has really put measurement and evaluation at the center of what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we subjected the program to a couple of randomized control trials, and that really got to some of the results I was talking about in terms of what we're seeing in terms of the graduation rates, what we're seeing in terms of reduction in arrests and violent crime. But I think ultimately what this next chapter for us is we know that getting young men to graduation and just not getting arrested is not enough, right? We've got to figure out how we help our young men to transition to the next chapter, to post-secondary, to college, to careers, back into their communities. And so that's really what this next work is about. How do we partner together, bring all the amazing organizations in the city of Chicago who are working on young men of color issues and great programming to figure out how do we get innovative solutions, get better linked together so that our young men have the opportunity to really live out their dreams and really just maximize their full potential.
Thanks, AJ. So the program is about becoming a man, and so we have a young man who is becoming a man. He looks like a man. He put on a tie. I didn't put on a tie. So I need to go through becoming a man. I think I missed some lessons. So Jose, tell us a little bit about you and your journey and how becoming a man is putting you on a path to success.
Well, like you said, my name is Jose Guzman. I'm a youth leader in becoming a man, which is called BAM. Well, I could have been in the streets. I could have been doing all this, drugs, anything. But this program has helped me to this point where I can grow spiritually, physically, emotionally, in a sense where I don't have the need to do that. I don't want it. I can be myself. I can grow, and we have this thing in a group. We do PIES check-ins. Right now, I'm gonna do one.
What kind of check-ins?
PIES check-ins.
Okay.
P-I-E-S.
Okay.
Okay, so the P stands for physically, I, intellectually, E, emotionally, and S, spiritually. So physically, I'm feeling great, my body feels great, nothing's injured.
Frank, how about you?
I'm feeling tired.
Intellectually.
Otherwise, I'm feeling great.
That's great. Intellectually.
And you guys got a program called Becoming an Old Man?
We're working on that.
Yeah, we're working on that. Intellectually, what you're thinking about. So right now, what I'm thinking about is just getting past this stage and, going home, getting some sleep. Emotionally, I'm feeling pretty excited, happy that, this program was invented, that someone came up with this genius idea of creating this program, helping youth out in a way that they don't have the need to do anything in a sense like go in a gang or, because going in a gang, there's only two ways to it, death or jail. I wouldn't want that in my life. And if I have a kid, I wouldn't want my son seeing me in jail, or I wouldn't want him knowing that his father is dead. And last but not least, spiritually, what I'm connected to is my BAM program, my BAM leader, Dex, and all these people here, and God.
You in?
I'm in. And with that, I close. Check.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. One of the things that we're hearing across the organizations and the programs that we are working with is if you don't take care of yourself as an adult, take care of yourself as a young person, If our community and our village doesn't take care of us, how are we supposed to go to school and learn? How are we supposed to go to work and manage people? And so it is so important in a culture where toxic masculinity for so many generations taught us to take it like a man, wipe off those tears. It's so important for us to have these moments in these places like NACA and like BAM where we can really talk about our emotions and we can really make sure that we are healthy and whole so that we can not only take care of ourselves and our families, but to take care of the community around us. And you two young men are incredible demonstrations of that. So, AJ and Frank, just really quickly, I want you to talk to other nonprofit organizations, other cities. And if you just had one piece of advice for them on what they need to do to make sure that our boys and young men of color can thrive, what is it?
Absolutely, positively work together. You know, this collective impact model is one that's, it's predicated on cross-sector partnerships and and these backbone organizations bringing people together. People become territorial, they want to work in silos. People work in silos for one reason, because it's easier, but it's not going to take you far enough. So my suggestion is that partner, but have meaningful roles for all the partner organizations and be honest when there's overlap. So bring people to the table to help fill in some of those gaps and take it from there.
Yeah, I think for me, it's meet the young people where they are, right? Don't make them come to you. Don't design programs or things, intervention supports for them without them. All the wisdom, all the knowledge that we need to figure this out is sitting right here inside of our young people.
That's right.
And if we can just, as adults, right, get out of this adultist mindset, and how do we figure out how to really center the conversation around the young people themselves? Get close to them, listen to them, and then ultimately realize there's two pieces. There's some healing that needs to happen.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. And healing might get you back to neutral, but it won't get you to thriving.
All right.
And so we need to also figure out how do we change the entire conversation to not surviving, but thriving.
That's right.
And so that's
right.
That's my 2 cents.
Somebody tweet that, Instagram it. Thank you, Brother AJ, for preaching a little bit.
It is Sunday, right?
It is Sunday. So to these two incredible young men, one of the things that President Obama said in a speech when we launched My Brother's Keeper Alliance, he said, I want to talk directly to the young men across the country. And he said, I want you to know that you matter. There's nothing, not a single thing that's more important to the future of America than whether or not you and young people like you can achieve your dreams. He said that not only because we have a moral obligation to make sure America remains a place where you can make it if you try, but also because we have an economic imperative. Our communities in America cannot succeed unless we are benefiting from the unique gifts and talents of these young men all across the country. And so with that, I'd like you to take us home and either tell us what does it mean to you when President Obama said that you matter, or what's your message to your peers who may be struggling a little bit and need to hear some words to take them to the next level.
Well, what I'd like to say is that, move forward. Don't let anything hold you back. No matter what it is, let it go. It's not worth it. Later on in the future, you're just going to tell yourself, why? Why did I hold on to it? What was the point? Just keep moving forward. Keep your head up. Keep your head straight. Just keep walking.
So with that, I would have to say that one of the more important things that I've learned from watching President Obama growing up and watching all my NACA members, NACA family, NACA parents, NACA staff, but one of the main things that I kept with me was from NACA was heal, grow, and thrive. Even though all this pain that's happening with this racism and everything going on, just remember that you have to heal from it, you have to learn from it, you have to grow from it, and thrive. Like, build off, teach the next generation.
Thanks, Quincy. That's where the wisdom is. I can't say much more. Sign up to meet some of our incredible community leaders and young people using Brain Dates. We also have 2 breakout sessions tomorrow on reducing violence and building caring relationships, so come to those. But please join me in thanking these incredible young change agents on the stage.
left me feeling so hopeful. Part of what Michael Smith and his crew are doing is rewriting the national narrative of boys and men of color. Our next speaker knows a thing or two about rewriting narratives. Obama Foundation fellow Ashley Hanson uses the arts to reweave the social fabric of civic life. Please welcome Ashley to the stage.
Hello, what an amazing room of people. I want to first thank Janelle for that awesome introduction. Recently, I was introduced at another event as someone who goes out into the middle of nowhere and makes art with rural America. I was like, yeah, and I live to tell about it. So about that, rural America is not one place. It is made up of extremely diverse communities, each addressing their own set of unique challenges. And think about the term middle of nowhere. What impact does that phrase have on a place? No matter where you are somewhere with a rich and complex history and ecology. You are somewhere that has experienced generations of trauma and genocide and generations of stewardship and care. You are somewhere that is someone's home. Rural communities are stereotyped for their resistance to change, an inability to imagine an alternative future, and then enact the change needed to work towards that future. But that perceived resistance is a symptom of economies based on extraction, damaging narratives, and lack of access to resources. In these cases, what I think of as our community creativity muscles that help move us towards an imagined future have experienced a kind of forced atrophy. So I am interested in opportunities for our communities that what they have to come together to exercise and build the strength they need to strengthen their community creativity muscles. What spaces are there for practicing, imagining, and creating together so that when the time comes to roll up our sleeves and enact change, we are ready? My work is relational and locational, which means that I fall in love with people and places and let that experience inform my practice. I have a theater company called Place-Based Productions, which works with small towns to tell their stories through site-specific original musicals. And I want to tell you about one of the places where we work, the town of Granite Falls. Granite Falls is located on the Minnesota River in the southwest corner of our state. It has 2,734 residents. It's settled on traditional Dakota land, and it now neighbors the Upper Sioux community. It's a town rooted in the agriculture industry with a cooperative hydroelectric dam, a walking bridge, and a main street with a popcorn stand that is open every night of the summer by Kiwanis volunteers, and countless other stories and assets that make it unique. 6 years ago, an environmental organization called Clean Up the River Environment was looking to reconnect people to the Minnesota River, the most polluted river in our state. At a community brainstorming session, one resident said, if we want people to care about the river, we need to get them on the river. That gave us an idea, paddling theater. Let's transform a 6-mile stretch of the Minnesota River into a stage. Now, to write our plays, we spend about a year with each community that we work with. We visit with folks like Gary Lentz, a self-proclaimed river hermit, or Kevin Jensfold, the tribal chairman of the Upper Sioux community, who shares with us the story of the cottonwood tree. Or we attend a potluck at the Mayor Dave Smigluski's house. We host karaoke to meet area talent, and we belly up at the bar at the local watering hole, and we listen to hundreds of stories. During each of these interactions, we are not only asking about the past, we are also asking about hopes for the future. If you had a magic wand and you could make anything happen in your community, what would it be? And we watch as the community creativity muscles start to stretch. After months of listening, we write our original musical and we hold open auditions. And since we have done the work of making friends, folks show up, lots of folks, and we cast every single one of them in the show. Our casts range in age from 5 to 95 years old. They are amateur historians, business owners, artists, and farmers. Most have never performed in a play in their life. Remember Gary the River Hermit and Dave the Mayor? Both were in our show. These folks become our actors, our musicians, artists, and stagehands, our community. And we imagine and start to create our 6 Mile stage with the help of our intergenerational cast. We rehearse scenes on riverbanks and on islands and in canoes. We create sets, we find costumes, we build props, we play silly theater games, and we dance in the middle of the prairie. We cook food for each other, we sing songs, we take risks, and our creativity muscles are getting an awesome workout. On the day of the big performance, nearly 200 audience members arrive from all over the region. And for 3 hours, paddlers who have never been to theater before and theater goers who have never paddled before learn about the history, industry, ecology, challenges, and hopes for the future of the river. They witness a Dakota song for the river sung by our friend Joe Whitehawk. They hear the captain of a paddle boat tell a story about bringing new residents to this country as far up the river as they could go. Drop me off at the end of the line. And they listen to a naturalist sing about 36 types of mussels found in the Minnesota River. There's the pond mussel pocketbook, pistol grip, pimpleback, warty back, washboard, am I clear? Listen here. And they hear our cast unite in an anthem. Here in our town, Granite Falls. After the show, we all gather, cast, crew, and audience at Memorial Park for a big celebration. We hear comments from our audience like, I never knew we had so much talent in this area. I've never heard these stories before. I've never been on this part of the river. I can't believe this is happening in Granite Falls. I wish I would have been a part of it. How many of you have been in a play before? Ooh, yeah, theater kids all over the place in here. So you know that feeling at the end of a run when the audience is applauding and you're all holding hands and your hearts are bursting at the seams and you're like, we did it together. That feeling is the most addictive experience. And once you have felt it, you are hooked. The only other time I can think of having experiences like that is in this kind of community work. After participating in our shows, our cast members have gone on to run for office, start businesses, join local boards, and build regional tourism networks. In Granite Falls, which is now the home base of our nonprofit, the Department of Public Transformation, we are transforming a Main Street building that had been vacant for 15 years into a creative community gathering space called Yes. This year, our city council unanimously approved a small-town city artist in residence program, the first of its kind in a town of its size in the country. And these types of things aren't just happening in Granite Falls. Last year, I bought a little yellow school bus and visited artists in small towns across the country to learn how their work was strengthening their community's creativity muscles. This movement is happening and being led by artists in small towns everywhere. So in thinking about ways to connect our communities and practice imagining and creating together, look to your artists. They can help you. Invite them into the process and pay them for their work. And together, we can get our community creativity muscles back in shape, so that when the time comes to enact change, you know that your fellow cast members have done their warm-ups, rehearsed their roles, and you can trust that they will be there in an act of solidarity that is about more than just coming together. It's about knowing that when the curtain rises, we are ready to link arms, walk boldly into the light, and create magic together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. You are such a bright light, and I love it. I am so excited about our final conversation of the evening. We often think of sports as just a form of entertainment, But athletes and fans have long been engaged in a conversation about moving the society forward. To explore that dialogue, we've invited an athlete, a team executive, and a lauded sports writer, each with a unique perspective. Please welcome Olympic medalist and fencer, Ibtihaj Muhammad, the president of baseball operations for the Chicago Cubs, Theo Epstein, and the director of sports journalism at Northwestern University, J.A. Ndande.
Good evening, everybody. We're wrapping it up here tonight. We'll be brief. I know we're all just standing between you and dinner, but we have some food for thought with two illustrious guests here. They're both pioneers in their own way. We'd never had a Muslim woman win a gold medal for America before. A bronze medal. She still won an Olympic medal, which is one more than either of us have, right? And Theo Epstein, at the time he took over the Boston Red Sox in 2002, was the youngest general manager in baseball history at 28 years old. So I want to ask both of you, I'll start with you, the notion of doing something that you hadn't seen anyone like yourself do before, and to take over and to succeed when there wasn't a model for either your gender or your faith or your age to pattern yourself after. How did you create this space for you when there was no path clearly delineated?
Well, you're looking at me, so I guess I'll start. I think that there's a lot of powers that be. There's a lot that has to happen in order for it to work, because there's a lot of pushback. And I wouldn't have been able to see myself and envision myself in that space had it not been for one of my mentors, Peter Westbrook. He's a 6-time Olympian, half African-American, half Japanese guy who started a nonprofit in New York City. And through his nonprofit, he has about 250 minority children learning how to fence every Saturday morning in New York City. And I was told about this nonprofit by chance. Someone said, you know, there's black people who fence in New York City. To me, and I said, whoa, that's offensive. But I was like, I Googled, like, you know, black people in New York City fencing, because I wanted to see it for myself. And in seeing all these athletes, not just who look like me, but also those who were, you know, on Olympic teams winning world medals, I had no idea that world was out there, that there was a possibility for me as like a young kid from Jersey. So it allowed me to see myself in that space.
You know, at the time, I didn't think too much of you getting that job. I was in my early 30s. Like, yeah, he's qualified. And looking back now that I'm in my 40s, 28?
Yeah, I was young.
What made you think you were doing? How did you know you were doing this? You're on the right track.
I was scared. I'll be honest. Yeah, it was intimidating going from completely anonymous to all of a sudden in Boston, the GM of the Red Sox is a public figure and subject of a lot of criticism and scrutiny as well. So. For me, I think, you know, admitting I was a little bit scared was important, and then I had tremendous mentorship. My mentor, Kevin Towers, had taken me under his wing through my 20s to help me get me ready to that point. I got some great advice from my dad. He said, "Be bold, you know, not be afraid to fail, not be afraid to get embarrassed, try new things. That's why you're there." And then I had a great community around me. I wasn't alone. I had a lot of 20-somethings working with me who I really trusted and empowered, and we worked hard together to make things work. And if I was completely alone, I don't think it would have worked at all.
You also had some input from your twin brother, who really wanted you to take advantage of your position to do things in the community. But you told me backstage, you had a baseball team to run first, and you had to establish yourself. I wonder, and as you've gone on in your career, how you balance the sense of obligation to, first of all, your bosses and your fan base to win games, how you balance that with your sense of obligation to the community to really have your organization be a part of the city at large?
Sure. Well, I think you have to do a good job, first of all. So the work comes first, and you have to be dedicated and put in the time and the focus to succeed, because if you don't succeed, you're not going to have the job and the platform to do some good disappears in the first place. When I got the job with the Red Sox, my brother called to congratulate me, and I thought he was just happy for me, but he's a social worker, and he said, great, now we can start a foundation and do all these good things. I have this nonprofit that needs help and these projects we have to do. And I told him, oh, that's a great idea, and that's exactly what I want to get to, but I need at least a year. I need to get my feet on the ground. I need to make sure I belong here and can do a good job. And so then my second year, we were real fortunate. We won the World Series, and then that year we launched our foundation. And I think it's been the most rewarding part, of coming up on 28 years in baseball now. Just having the ability to see the impact you can make. I mean, there's so many people who are young people, old people, who are passionate about baseball, and that makes all the athletes role models. That makes our words important. And so when you can take some of that interest and, yes, some of those resources and redirect it to nonprofit groups who are doing the most important work in our society, it seems to make sports more than just the bread and circus of society, but making a lasting impact. And so, but for that, we'd probably question our jobs a little bit, but the chance to make a real impact makes it really worthwhile.
You had input from someone that you met at the mall right after the 2012 Olympics. Describe how that helped propel you into a 2016 Olympian, and I guess your sense of commitment that you felt from this young girl that you met, if you could tell that story.
Yeah, so I was at a mall with a friend, and we met a young girl who approached me and wanted an autograph. She said, are you that Olympic fencer? And at that time, I just missed the 2012 Olympic team, and I had a whole spiel that I had run down, and I said to people like, oh, well, I'm not an Olympian, but I am a fencer. And before I could say anything, the friend who was with me said, oh, she's actually not an Olympian. And I was like, okay, this person's not a friend. But I remember, for me, it was...
Let her live the illusion, right?
In that moment, I kind of realized that I did, in fact, want to embark on this journey of qualifying for an Olympic team. No one had ever sat me down to say, this is how you do it, this is what you need to do, this is the qualification process, because I was still very new to the sport, very new to the world circuit. I had only been on the team for a year when the Olympic qualification process started, and as an African-American athlete in a predominantly white sport, I didn't have the same experiences as my teammates. I didn't start at the age of 12 traveling to Europe to go to World Cups. I have working class parents. I didn't even know that opportunity existed, to be honest. And now being an adult, embarking on this world circuit, kind of starting behind the curve, wanting to represent my country at the highest level of sport, I really had to grind. So I was very myopic in my focus beginning in 2012. I had 4 years to make it happen, and to be honest, it all starts from a dream. Because there's a lot of forces that aren't accepting of change. They don't want to see the sport change. And change to them is sometimes, being someone from a different club that's not theirs. And if the people in your club and in your area happen to all look like you and they happen to all be white, that means that someone like me, there's no space for me to exist. So there's a lot of not you just challenging the norm that exists within the sport, but also challenging yourself, seeing yourself in a space where, like you said, there's no one, it hasn't been done before. So you have to really convince yourself that it's possible. And for me, having athletes like Serena and Venus, having a profound and prolific athlete like Muhammad Ali, who to me has showed me how to not just be my best within sport and on the field of play, but also outside of sport, be a champion for the people, which to me has always been most important.
You talked about going against... You were in a traditional sport with a lot of norms, and Theo, baseball would fall into that category as well. How and in what way does baseball need to adapt this mindset and update its mindset of the unwritten rules and the way the game is played when those rules kind of came into play before the sport was open to the community at large? So what way does baseball need to make changes?
Yeah, baseball is probably the most traditional of the four major sports and the most slow to change and the most demographically homogeneous probably. And even in the way the game is played, there's this expectation a lot of times that you won't express yourself freely. You won't celebrate even a home run because it might show up the other team. which is a little bit ridiculous when you think about it. But I do sense...
They're hard to come by.
Yeah, they are. They are. I do sense great change in the game. We have some progressive leadership from the commissioner's office, and you probably recently saw the new commercial with Ken Griffey celebrating bat flips and celebrating free expression. And I think, empowering our young players who are, they're developing into the young men that they're going to be. Empowering them to be themselves is not just the right thing to do, but it's also good business. It produces results. Our manager here in Chicago, Joe Madden, has been extremely successful with young players because he's taken these century-old norms about how young players should act and how they should dress. There's a dress code on the road where young players, even just up from the minor leagues, who might not even own a suit, have to wear a suit and tie on the road at all times. And these norms just make them uncomfortable. And so it typically takes 3 to 4 years for a young player to adjust to life in the big leagues and start to relax and be himself and perform. So Joe took those norms and deconstructed them. And he told our young players, if you want to fit in, all you have to do is be yourself and have fun and express yourself. So the dress code went from suit and tie on the road to, if you think you look hot, wear it. And just a really small point, but you could just see our young players excel, and we had some of the quickest assimilations into excellent careers by young players that have been seen in the big leagues in a long time because of that.
Imtiaz, you might have started your career trying to succeed for yourself and see where you could push the boundaries for yourself and people who look like you, but you really embraced representing your country. You wear American flag on your mask when you fence. You had an Instagram post of you literally hugging the Statue of Liberty, a drawing of you hugging the Statue of Liberty.
That wasn't of me. That was a repost.
Okay.
Yeah. But she had on hijab and she had brown skin, so everyone thought that was me. Yeah. Not me.
But we've seen a photograph. I know it was you in the picture with the American flag celebrating your victory. This is a country that hasn't always embraced people like you, and yet you've embraced it and represent it. Speak to that duality and what makes you proud to wear those colors and to represent this country.
Well, I feel like it's so multidimensional. It's a loaded question. As an African American, this is the only country that I know. And I feel like I am breaking down norms. I'm shattering, a lot of barriers and just existing as myself. I don't have to say much, on the podium as an American wearing hijab. I'm challenging those stereotypes that exist in media, that exist in Hollywood about my community. And I challenge each of you today to don't continue to consume things that depict Muslims in a bad light because they aren't representative. They aren't representative of me, of my family, of anyone that I know. And the Muslim community is like any other religious community. We are vast and there's a lot of us. We don't all look like me. We're certainly not all Arab, definitely not oppressed. I choose to wear hijab. I have a voice. You follow me on social media, so you know. And I feel like America is all that I know. I feel very close to it. And to have the opportunity to represent my country at the highest level of sport was the greatest gift I've ever been given. And when you talk about this journey through sport and it being for me, it's never felt like it was for me, to be honest. I've always had that feeling inside that I was fighting for anyone who's ever been told no, anyone who's ever been made to feel as if, a space wasn't made for them. And I've always felt like that in fencing, and I feel like it's changing. It's slow, especially within the team. I still feel like it's a slow process, but we'll get there, and hopefully it starts with the next generation.
You mentioned the hijab. A lot of the stories that talk about you focus on that. You compete with it. Nike's even made special edition hijab workout attire. Do you feel like that obscures your personality and aspects of your humanity, or is it reflective? Is that discussion and the hijab really reflect who you are and what you want to represent, the role model that you want to be?
Well, I mean, I think that there's also a greater conversation about religion and sports, right? And do the two kind of blend at any point? And for some athletes, they're very much so one and the same. I feel like me wearing hijab and observing hijab is a way for me to be conscious of my faith and to kind of lead my life God conscious and to remember to be a good person. And anyone that you ask who covers, who wears, Muslim women who wear hijab, everyone's answer is going to be different. But for me, my faith in having this belief of things happen the way that they're supposed to, never wanting to let fear precede me, is why I sit with you today. If I was not on the Olympic team, I wouldn't be here, right? So I know that my faith is what guided me. I had some really tough moments in my career where I feel like I was ostracized as an athlete, mostly for being different. And I know that without having that faith and believing in myself and being my own biggest cheerleader, I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have come out on top. So there's something to be said for just supporting yourself when others are really trying to break you, but also, I know for me, I think that comes from being just a God-conscious person.
This is what fascinates me about sports, is the different discussions and directions that it can lead. Theo, what's your response to the stick to sports crowd, or the shut up and dribble, or shut up and bunt, whatever the sport might be? What's your response to that? And also, what are some of the restrictions that people might not realize that you're under? That maybe you want to speak out on things, but there are a lot of factors, there are a lot of different people that you need to appease in order to keep your job.
Right. I mean, the shut up and dribble perspective is so ridiculous, it's almost irrelevant. It threatens to dehumanize athletes, which is, where I think the best results come from humanizing athletes and recognizing, no matter how stats-based you might be, that the game is played by men and women with their own backgrounds and perspectives and thoughts and feelings, and they should be expressed to reach one's potential. But I think the shut up and dribble crowd really tends to play off of fear. Fear that an opinion expressed might be shouted down by half of the fan base, or trolls on Twitter might silence an athlete, or management or ownership might not approve, and it can threaten a career. We had a meeting in spring training this year just to let our players know that we didn't want them to shut up and, I guess in this case, throw and shut up and hit. We wanted them to be themselves, and if they had opinions, to express them, to be smart about it, to be respectful to their teammates, more than anything, to engage in conversation, inside the clubhouse to start, and to get to know the different perspectives that exist with the other 24 men around them, and to engage in topics. There was the Parkland school shooting during spring training. One of our players, Anthony Rizzo, had graduated from there, and so of course they're going to be talking about issues like gun control in the clubhouse. So there were perspectives on both sides, but why shouldn't they be voiced? Why should you then leave it insular inside the clubhouse? Of course, as a human being and an athlete, you should use your platform and express them. And so our players, many of them have been brave and done so, but other sports like basketball seem to have an environment that's more conducive to players speaking out. And I think you'll see that change in baseball in the coming years.
And to your point, Theo, I think that from the athlete perspective, there's a fear of the backlash, right? And there's a lot of athletes who want to speak out, but also don't know exactly how to do it. I've co-founded Athletes for Impact, which helps professional athletes in particular mobilize those of us who want to speak on social issues, who want to essentially be more engaged within our communities, maybe even on a national level or local level, have the opportunity now with this nonprofit.
Where can people find out more about that?
Athletes for Impact. You can Google it.
And Theo, we've got a minute left. I'll give you a chance to plug your program, Careers as Sports Executives, CASE.
Well, we just recognize that one area of our industry that's not diverse enough at all is the front office. And a lot of internships and other opportunities were going towards people who already had connections or already had privilege. So we started a program actually in 2 high schools not far from here, Kenwood Academy and Hyde Park, with 25 high school sophomores and juniors who like sports but didn't quite understand the breadth of opportunities out there in the front office or in sports journalism and management. And we had an 8-session curriculum, just kind of trying to expand their minds and help them understand that you don't need to become an NBA player in order to make a career in sports. And it was really successful and something we're going to try to scale up and continue to try to help make front offices as diverse as our country is.
We are right on time. Thank you to our 2 panelists. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much to all of our guests. God, that was so much fun. I am so happy to be a part of an organization that gives an opportunity like this to young leaders. As I say goodbye to you for the night, we are going to close out by hearing from someone who is really the resonant voice of the foundation, CEO David Seamus.
Oh my goodness. Chicago, on behalf of Barack and Michelle Obama and the entire Obama Foundation, welcome to our 2nd annual summit. If last year was about listening and learning, this year there are 650 change makers in this room. Dig in, learn from each other, and let me just begin with a little story. O meu pai é Antônio, a minha mãe é Diolinda. Eu sou filho de imigrante. My father is Antonio Seamus, my mother is Diolinda Seamus. They immigrated from Portugal. The first memory I had as a child, I was 3, my father came to the babysitter's house. And he said to me that my mother had been involved in an accident at work. My father said to me was that someone had cut a corner on maintenance in the factory where she was making forks and spoons and knives. And within a blink of an eye, this young, vibrant, immigrant young woman had lost fingers on her hand. The courage of an immigrant to leave language and family and culture and food and friendships and memory because of a belief that you're going to build something better for children, in my case, they didn't even have. In what I saw as a young boy of 3 and 4 and 5 has brought me to this moment. In that moment where my mother and father needed assistance, the church, the neighbors, the coworkers, everyone in the community lifted up Antonio and Diolinda in this moment. And so fast forward 30 years, their son, David, walks through the gates at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue every single day to work for Barack Obama. On the way in the door in the morning and on the way out at night, I said the same thing to myself like a mantra. Remember who you are and what you represent. I wasn't there because of any transcendent brilliance or because I worked harder than anybody else or because God knows I wasn't more connected than others. I was there because at a moment when my parents fell, and frankly, when I fell repeatedly, a community lifted me up. That's my story. And so when I have listened to each one of you around our theme of common hopes and uncommon stories, the thing that binds you, the 650 people in these inaugural programs that will build into the largest network of global change makers on the planet, is that each one of you deeply believe in the power of community to transform people's lives and make them better. That's who you are and what you represent. And as I think now about what's common among us, the thing that is different in the uncommon stories, and we have seen it on the stage today, but think about this. There are 300 of you from Chicago and Phoenix and Columbia who look different, who have different backgrounds, who have different experiences, who tell your stories in a way that allows you to see what is possible. Think about the 20 Obama Fellows out of an application class of 21,000. Who are at the cusp of going from amazing to transformative, but understand that not only do they give, but they receive as part of a community. Think about the Obama scholars at the University of Chicago and Columbia University, who are taking a year off to dig down deeper into what they want to do to give back. We have people here who are part of our African Leaders Program, who gathered with the president in Johannesburg in July of this year for the 100th anniversary celebration of Nelson Mandela, each one of them wearing a t-shirt that said, "We are the ones we have been waiting for." The My Brother's Keeper Alliance and Jose and Quincy, powerful, as part of a network of people dedicated to that idea that there is systemic injustice in the world. And we have a responsibility to lift it up. The Global Girls Alliance, stood up by Michelle Obama, who said that women and girls throughout the planet, in order to be fully integrated into a community, need to receive the same education and opportunities that boys and men receive. The young men and women who are part of the Obama Youth Job Corps in high school, who are now freshmen in college, in partnership with a group called Urban Alliance, who are seeing what's possible and enriched us as part of the process. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the beginning. And in one short year, all of these uncommon stories come together in a way that I just could not be more proud of. And this session and tomorrow is about learning from you, connecting you to one another, engaging in a way that is consistent with the ideals of Barack and Michelle Obama, and we will be listening very closely because we need to continue to learn. And for those of you from Chicago and those of you who are coming back, here's one way we're learning. We are building the Obama Presidential Center and Museum on the south side of Chicago. It is a place dedicated to the story and to the legacy of two ordinary people who did extraordinary things, Barack and Michelle Obama. It is based in their community, the South Side, because they both say that their lives are only possible because of the community that lifted them up. And so when we tell the story of those two individuals, it is impossible to tell the story without focusing on the community that also lifted them up. No one does anything alone. And when the young boys and girls go through the Obama Presidential Museum in the center, when each of you go through, success for us is not just the wonderful stories of what they did and what we all did. Success is when that young boy and girl sees those stories and sees themselves in those stories. That's what I'm talking about. So as we convene and gather here for this next day and a half in Chicago, the next thing all of you are going to see is tonight, we're going to go to 5 restaurants in Chicago. Restaurants that give you a little insight into the vibrancy of this city, about the different perspectives, the different cultures, the different foods, the different history that make up a community. You'll see the restaurant that you're supposed to go to on the back of your name tag. And so we will have an interesting logistical dynamic to get you all into 5 separate restaurants seamlessly. But I think we can do it. Finally, I'm going to turn it over to Queen Esther, a woman who, through her words and through her music and through her presence, I think embodies the theme that we want to bring to you here tonight and tomorrow. That when we work together, when we share our common hopes and come together under our uncommon stories, anything, and I mean anything, is possible. Ladies and gentlemen, Queen Esther.
Hi, everybody. Oh, I love it when you talk to me. Thank you so much for having us. Please join me in welcoming my guitarist, Jeff McLaughlin, to the stage. I want to tell you a little story. Want to hear a story? Have you heard of Cathay Williams? Yeah? I got a yeah. I never get a yeah. Cathay Williams lived in Independence, Missouri, and at the end of the Civil War, all she wanted was a job. She just wanted to work. And she couldn't find any work, so she disguised herself as a man. She joined the Army, and she went undetected for 2 years. She is the first African-American woman to do this. Now, this isn't the first time that women have disguised themselves as men to get what they want. As a matter of fact, during the Civil War, over 400 women disguised themselves as men and worked as soldiers, but she's the first one that actually officially joined the Army. Well, after she joined, she got smallpox, and that really weakened her. She still did those long marches, but eventually, during a hospitalization, they found out that she was a woman. And they honorably discharged her. But she was completely undaunted, and her adventure continued in the 38th Regiment, an all-black troop that you know of as the Buffalo Soldiers. Anything is possible, anything, except that pension, which they refused to give her. But still in all, she got to tell her story. And we know about it because a reporter who couldn't believe that she actually pulled this off found her, and she actually told him everything, and he turned it into an article that reverberated all over the country at the time. It was scandalo that she actually pulled this off. So I thought I'd write a song cycle about her, and this is the first song that I came up with. It's the Black Girl Cowboy song. There was a long-standing history in the Old West of African Americans. 1 in 4 cowboys that you see should be African American. 1 in 10 should be Chinese. I know, right? It was the Chinese Americans who built the railway system that united this country. And they were an integral part in the cowboy experience, something I'd really love to see on television, by the way. Anyway, I hope you like this song. This is called the Black Girl Cowboy Song. Cowboy life doesn't suit me. stars ignite and make me hazy. When a prairie tenor sings to me. Life in a saddle gets no glory. My poke's got pop skull guarantee. Above my bend is big sky country. Every airline road makes me believe. Obsquatulate with no directions. They're in the Badlands asking questions. Banded, balled up, no persuaders. Pull in your horns and sing to me. Thank you. Y'all, they're gonna let me do one more. So, this is such a great honor. And when they told me that I would sing here, I wanted to write something especially for all of you, because you inspired me so much. This is truly where hope lives. We've been listening backstage, and, I'm on fire. So this song is called All That We Are, and I hope you like it. you think you're the brave ones, and the